Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will look at surface area and volume of a rectangular prism. So note that a cube is a type of rectangular prism. I know this cube is poorly drawn, but it follows the formula for volume of a rectangular prism. So for the volume of a rectangular prism, it's pretty easy. You just multiply length, width, and height. So for this cube, it's just going to be 1 times 1 times 1. So this cube has volume 1 meter cubed. Now, if I wanted to find the volume of this cube, however, in centimeters, well, each side would be 100 centimeters. So the volume would be 100 times 100 times 100, which is actually 1 million centimeters cubed. So even though there are 100 centimeters in a meter, there are 100 cubed or 1 million centimeters cubed in a meter cubed. You probably already know this chart for conversions, but when we're converting cubic units, we need to cube everything. So if you're going from, say, meters cubed to centimeters cubed, you don't times by 100, you times by 100 cubed. Remember, the rule is smaller to larger unit you divide because there's fewer of the larger unit. Larger to a smaller unit you times because there are more of the smaller unit. So when you're converting cubic units, please make sure you cube these numbers called the conversion factor. So there is another set of conversions we need to know, and that's units of volume and units of capacity. Capacity and volume are the same thing, they just use different units. So it turns out a centimeter cubed is actually the same as a milliliter. So if you've had, a 375 ml can of Coke, that means it contains 375 centimeters cubed of Coke, because 1 centimeter cubed and 1 mil are literally the same thing. So 1 meter cubed is 1 million centimeters cubed. That means it's 1 million milliliters. So to go from milliliters to liters, remembering there are 1,000 milliliters in a liter, all I need to do to convert this to liters is divide by 1,000. So it turns out 1 meter cubed is 1,000 liters. So these are the 3 facts you need to know to convert from units of capacity and units of volume. A centimeter cubed and a mil are the same thing. There's 1,000 of them. 1,000 mils, 1,000 centimeters cubed in a liter, and there are 1,000 liters in a meter cubed. All right, let's now look at finding the volume, capacity, and also surface area of this rectangular prism. So the volume is pretty easy. When you have a rectangular prism like this, if you want to find its volume, you simply multiply together the 3 dimensions. So it's 6 times 4 times 3, which is 72 units cubed. So if each of these is in meters, then it would be meters cubed. See, this is kind of what volume is. It's how many of these little cubes could fit inside. If this volume is 72 meters cubed, it means you can fit 72 of these cubes inside this one. So 72 meters cubed actually means it would hold 72,000 liters. So make sure you remember this. It's amazing how many kids would say that a meter cube's a liter. They think this here would hold 72 liters. Just remember, 6 times 4 times 3 meter, that is a massive container. That's almost the size of like a room. So it would hold a lot more than 72 liters. We're now going to look at finding the surface area of this shape. So the surface area of a 3D shape is just the sum of the area of each of its faces. So a rectangular prism here has 6 faces. It has 2 identical rectangles on top and the bottom, 2 at the front and back, and 2 on each of the sides. This has 6 rectangular faces. Its total surface area, which we denote TSA, is just each of these 6 rectangles, each of those areas added together. So for this rectangular prism, we can see that there are 2 rectangles on the top and the bottom that are 6 by 4. So we just go 2 times 6 times 4. Then we can see front and the back, there are 2 identical rectangles that are 4 by 3. So we'll add those because we're adding the areas of each of the faces here. And then we can see there are 2 identical rectangles at the side that are 6 by 3. So we'll add those, 2 by 6 by 3. So if you add up all of that, you get 108. Now, surface area is in units squared because it is an area. So the surface area of this rectangular prism is 108 meters squared. So you can probably see that any rectangular prism will have its surface area calculated in a similar way. So for the total surface area, there will always be rectangles coming in twos. So you just go length times width, width times height, and length times height. Add them all up and times by 2. There'll be 2 of these rectangles, 2 of these rectangles, and 2 of these rectangles. So note that here the total surface area formula requires this to be closed. That means it has all of its faces. If it didn't have a top or didn't have one of the sides, the surface area would be different. We'd have to take away that side. Of course, if we take away the top or the side or whatever, it won't change the volume, but it will change the surface area. So you can calculate the surface area of any 3D shape. It's just the sum of the area of each of its exposed faces. All right, let's look now at a harder question. So here we're told the surface area of a rectangular prism is 412 centimeters squared, height 10, width 7, calculate its volume. So note that the volume of any rectangular prism is length times width times height. Pretty simple. So here we know the height and the width, but not the length. In order to calculate the volume of a rectangular prism, we need to know its length as well. So what we're going to need to do is take our information about the surface area and use this to calculate the length. So as I've said before, whenever you're finding a dimension, a side length, start off by writing the formula and substitute in everything you know. So we know the total surface area of a rectangular prism is 2 times length times width times length times height times width times height. So that is the formula. Here we're assuming that the rectangular prism is closed. So we're just going to go substitute everything we know. So we're told that the total surface area is 412, so I rub that out, replace it with 412. Now we're also told that the width here is 7. So everywhere I see width, I'm going to replace it with a 7. And everywhere I see height, I'm going to replace that with 10. That was given to us in the question. So hopefully your eyes are lighting up a bit at the moment, because what we have is an equation with just one unknown. Here this was length, by the way, and length. That's the only unknown in this equation, so we can solve it easily. So what we're going to do is first divide each side by 2. So 412 divided 2 is 206. Then we're left with 7L plus 10L plus 70. So we subtract 70 from both sides. I get 136 equals 7L plus 10L is 17. So dividing each side by 17, I get 8 equals L. So this rectangular prism has width 7, height 10, and length 8. So therefore its volume is simply going to be 7 times 8 times 10, length times width times height, which is 560, and it will be in units cubed. So 560 centimeters cubed means it will hold 560 mils of water, so it's a bit over half a litre. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.